I never thought I'd end up in a courtroom again. But once my mother filed a lawsuit against me, I didn't really have a choice. She sat across from me, stiff posture, cold expression, acting like she had every moral right to be there. We hadn't spoken in years, but her look was exactly the same as always, distant and blaming. When the bailiff called our case, she immediately stood up and said, "Your Honor, I demand full reimbursement of the debt I was forced to pay for my daughter. $470,000. And an additional $300,000 for emotional distress." I stayed quiet. There was no point arguing at that moment. She continued. "She hasn't lived with me for years. She doesn't call. She doesn't care." Meanwhile, creditors threatened my home and my peace of mind. I ended up in the hospital because of the stress. I had to pay everything myself. The judge looked at me briefly, but let her finish. My mother always knew how to reshape events in a way that made me look like the entire problem. When the judge finally turned to me, I said, "Your Honor, I agree to repay part of what she paid toward the debt. But the emotional damages she's asking for have nothing to do with me. And not everything she said reflects how things actually happened." My mom let out a loud sigh, but stayed silent under the judge's glance. I added, "She wasn't obligated to pay anything. She decided to do it herself. And she only reached out because she was worried about her apartment, not because she wanted to help." The judge nodded and wrote something down. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I wasn't trying to please her, I was just stating the facts. The judge asked me to explain my side in more detail. It wasn't easy, but it was time to tell the story from the beginning, without the version my mother always spread around town. I took a breath. "Your Honor, things between me and my mother didn't fall apart overnight. I kept my voice steady. Growing up, nothing I did was ever good enough. I tried to be the daughter she wanted, good grades, no trouble, staying quiet, but it never mattered. If I brought home an A, she asked why it wasn't an A+. If I wanted to join a club, she said it was a waste of time. Even what I wore was a problem." Across the aisle, she crossed her arms, staring straight ahead. I continued. "When I was 15, I met someone. He wasn't perfect, but it was the first time I felt like somebody actually listened to me. I was afraid to tell her about him, and for good reason." The judge nodded for me to continue. "When she found out I was pregnant at 17, she didn't ask a single question. She grabbed me by the hand, dragged me to a clinic, and told me to sit and wait. She said if I didn't follow her plan, she'd throw me out." My mother shifted in her seat, but didn't deny it. I told her I couldn't do that, and she walked out. So I went to friends' places. I rotated couches. I worked wherever they'd take me. I was still in school, still pregnant, still trying to figure out how to survive. The courtroom was quiet. The child's father refused responsibility. I had medical bills, rent, food. I took small loans just to keep going. I wasn't proud of it, but I was alone. Completely alone. I paused for a moment. And yes, I made a desperate and stupid decision once. I regret it every day. The authorities got involved, and I faced the consequences. I've never tried to hide from that. Even the judge looked softer at that. But none of those things give my mother the right to rewrite history like she saved me. She left me. And now all of this, I gestured toward the paperwork, is happening because she cares more about her apartment than anything else. The judge leaned back, considering everything. And for the first time, I felt like the truth wasn't being swallowed by her version of events. After I finished explaining my side, the judge asked my mother to clarify why she decided to pay the loan instead of letting the creditors pursue me directly. "Your Honor," she began, "I paid because I was terrified to lose my home. They called nonstop. They said her share of the apartment could be taken. I couldn't live like that." I looked at the floor. Her voice was steady, rehearsed. Mine had never been. The judge interrupted gently. "Ms. Miller, you are an adult. Your daughter is an adult. You were under no legal obligation to pay her debt. Why not simply allow the creditor to pursue their lawful process?" My mother replied as if, "Because she is my daughter. And because her decisions affect my property." She left me with the consequences. I had to protect myself. The judge made another note. Then he turned to me. Miss Miller, is it correct that you did not ask your mother to pay the debt? Correct, Your Honor. Did she inform you she intended to pay it on your behalf? No. My mother let out an irritated breath, but stayed quiet. I continued. I had already arranged a payment plan. It wasn't ideal, but it was mine. She never talked to me. She just paid everything and now wants it back, plus extra. The judge nodded slowly. He glanced between us, two people with the same last name, sitting on opposite ends of the room, both exhausted in completely different ways. Then he asked, Miss Miller, explain how you originally ended up with these loans. I swallowed. Your Honor, after my daughter was born. I was 17 alone, working part-time, barely making anything. I took a few small loans for essentials, diapers, formula, medical bills. Later, when rent got out of control, I took another microloan to merge the old ones. I didn't fully understand the interest rates. I was just trying to get through the month. He raised his head. And the large loan your mother paid? I nodded. That one was a consolidation loan. High interest. I should have asked for advice, but I didn't have anyone to ask. I wasn't trying to avoid responsibility. I just didn't have enough income to cover everything while paying rent. My mother couldn't hold herself back. But you never told me. The judge stopped her with a single raised hand. Ms. Miller, you had no relationship for years. Your daughter was not required to report her finances to you. For the first time, she didn't look angry, she looked unsettled. And I realized something. This wasn't just about money. It was about control she no longer had. The judge asked me to continue, wanting a clear picture of how everything escalated. So I kept going, straightforward, no drama, just the truth. Your Honor, things really collapsed when my daughter was a few months old. I kept my voice steady. At the time, I was working part-time at a small cafe. My pay barely covered rent for a single room. Some weeks, I had to choose between paying the electric bill and buying formula. When the cafe cut my hours, I fell behind. I didn't look at my mother. There was no point. We were evicted. Not because I was out partying or wasting money, but because the landlord didn't want a teenage mother who couldn't guarantee full rent on time. So I took a microloan. Not for anything extra, just to keep us afloat. The judge listened carefully. I didn't understand the interest rates. I didn't understand how fast the amount would grow. I was 17, trying to survive with a newborn. I continued. Later, when I fainted during pregnancy and ended up in the hospital, the medical bills pushed me even deeper into debt. After my daughter was born, I worked whenever I legally could and paid what I was able to. But one late fee turned into two. Two turned into four. Soon the fees were bigger than the original loans. Then the judge asked, "And when did your mother return to your life?" I answered simply, when creditors contacted her about her apartment. Not when I lost my place. Not when I was pregnant. Not when I needed help with my daughter. Only when she got scared something could affect her property. The courtroom stayed quiet. No shouting. No arguments. Just the facts finally said out loud. After I finished speaking, the judge turned to my mother. It was her turn now. She straightened her back. "Your Honor," she began, "my daughter paints me as some kind of villain, but I did everything I could for her." I stayed silent. I'd heard variations of this speech my whole life. She continued. When she was a teenager, she was already out of control. Skipping school, running around with the wrong people. I tried to guide her, but she rejected every rule, every piece of advice. The judge glanced at her, expression neutral. "And yes," she added, "when she got pregnant at 17, I told her what I thought was best. I didn't want her to throw away her future." Best for who? I didn't say it out loud. She refused everything. She acted like I was the enemy. And then she left. I didn't put her out, she walked out on her own. I lowered my eyes for a moment. Not because her words hurt now. The judge tapped his pen. "Ms. Miller," he asked carefully, "why didn't you attempt to contact your daughter after she left home?" She hesitated for the first time. "Because she made her choice," she finally said. and I needed to focus on my own life. She cut ties with me, not the other way around. That wasn't true, but I didn't interrupt. I didn't know she was struggling, she added quickly. No one told me she was living unstable or unsafe. And when the loan company called me, I acted like any responsible parent would. I stepped in. The judge wrote something down but didn't comment. My mother lifted her chin. I paid the full amount because the debt threatened my home. And now my daughter refuses to take responsibility. That is why I'm asking for full reimbursement and compensation for everything I've been through. Her voice had that familiar tone. The judge looked between us. Two completely different stories. Two different versions of the same past. And zero common ground. Finally, he spoke. I have heard both sides. Now we need to focus on the legal aspects. That single line made my stomach tighten. Because the legal side didn't care about feelings, only facts. And the facts were complicated. The judge finally leaned back in his chair, giving me that calm look judges use right before they slice through the drama and get to the part that actually matters. He turned to me first. Ms. Miller, did you ever ask your mother to pay your loan? No, I said. Not once. My mother shook her head dramatically, like I had just betrayed her on national television. Did you authorize her to make payments on your behalf? No. He nodded, nothing surprising to him, apparently, and shifted his attention to my mother. Ms. Thompson, you're requesting reimbursement for a debt your adult daughter incurred. You voluntarily paid it. Why do you believe she is legally obligated to return that money to you? She jumped into her usual wounded martyr tone. Because, Your Honor, I was threatened. They called me every day. They said they'd take the apartment. I was terrified. I had no choice. The judge raised his hand gently, a silent stop. They could not take your share of the apartment. Only her share. That one landed like a brick. She blinked several times, clearly not expecting that answer. You chose to pay, he added. A voluntary payment does not create a legal debt unless there is a written agreement. Was there one? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. No. He wrote something down, and I swear, even his handwriting sounded judgmental. Then he turned to me. Ms. Miller, you understand that you have the legal right to request a buyout of your mother's portion of the property? Yes, I said. And I'm ready to do that. Not because of the loan, but because it's my legal right. My mother let out a sarcastic little laugh. So I'm just a bank now? The judge didn't even look up. We are not evaluating emotional dynamics today. That line hit her harder than anything I'd ever said to her in my life. We are evaluating whether your daughter is financially responsible for a debt she never agreed to. Silence. Real, uncomfortable silence, the kind that fills every corner of a courtroom. Then the judge continued. Next, we will address the issue of the apartment and the minor child registered there. My chest tightened. That was the part one had been dreading. Because the law was finally about to touch the one thing my mother could never manipulate with guilt. My daughter. The judge adjusted his glasses and focused on the documents in front of him, the ones from Child Protective Services, my income statements, and the record that my daughter, Emma, was officially registered at my mother's apartment. His voice softened just a little, not sympathetic, just steady. Ms. Miller, your child is currently under state guardianship, correct? Yes, I said quietly. I'm working to get her back. I've been saving. I'm in counseling. I'm doing everything they asked. He nodded. My mother folded her arms, making that dramatic, she'll never change face she used on me my whole childhood. And the child is still registered in this apartment, he continued. Yes, Your Honor. He turned to my mother. Ms. Thompson, that registration gives your daughter a legal right to reside in the property, regardless of your personal relationship. She may move in with her child once reunification occurs. My mother's entire face tightened, like she'd just heard the judge announce someone was moving a wild bear into her living room. Absolutely not, she muttered. He ignored it. In addition to that, he continued, she may request that you buy out her share of the property. If you decline or do not respond within a statutory period, she may legally sell her share to a third party. My mom snapped her head toward me like she was ready to accuse me of treason. You would sell your part to a stranger just to spite me? I kept my voice even. No, Mom. I just want stability for my daughter. And for myself. That was the truth. No theatrics. No revenge fantasy. Just basic survival. Stability, she scoffed. After everything you've done? The judge finally looked up. Miss Thompson, you do not get to weaponize guilt in this courtroom. She froze. I think everyone in the room did. He leaned back. This is a legal matter, not a moral one. Your daughter owes you nothing unless there is a contract. There is no contract. Therefore, the court sees no grounds to require reimbursement. Mom's jaw literally trembled, not because she was sad, but because she'd lost control. He wasn't done. As for the property, the law is clear. Your daughter's rights as a co-owner are fully intact. She may sell her share or require a buyout. If you wish to avoid the sale to a third party, you may compensate her accordingly. Silence again. The kind that strips away excuses and leaves only facts. My mother swallowed hard, realizing the only thing left to argue with was reality. The judge took a slow breath, the kind that makes the entire courtroom go quiet without him even asking for silence. His expression didn't change, but the room shifted, like everyone knew the ruling was already written somewhere above our heads. He finally spoke. The plaintiff's request for reimbursement is denied. Just like that. No dramatic speech. No sympathy. One sentence that erased every accusation my mother had thrown at me. I watched her shoulders jerk, the way they always did when reality didn't match her version of the world. He continued. There is also no legal basis for compensation for emotional distress. Both parties are adults, and there was no formal obligation tying the defendant to the debt. My mother exhaled sharply, almost offended the judge wasn't buying her performance. Me? I just sat still. Not celebrating, just letting myself breathe, without guilt for the first time in years. Then the judge looked directly at me. Ms. Miller, regarding your co-ownership, you have the right to request a buyout. If the co-owner refuses or fails to respond, you may sell your share to a third party. Additionally, once you complete your reunification plan, you and your child have the right to reside in the property. I nodded. Quietly. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like responsibility, a door I'd have to learn to walk through on my own strength. My mother snapped. You're giving her the right to move into my home? With that child? After everything she's done? The judge didn't even blink. It is also her home. The sentence hit the room with finality, like the gavel had fallen before it physically did. For the first time during the whole trial, my mother looked, not angry, not outraged, but lost. Like she realized she'd spent years trying to control someone she no longer knew. The judge closed his folder. Case closed. Court is adjourned. When I stepped into the hallway, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel bitterness. Just space, like my chest finally had room for something other than fear. I'm still rebuilding myself, piece by piece. But for the first time, I'm choosing the pieces. And no one, not even my mother, gets to choose them for me again.